Fox News loves a good scandal, but when it involves the parent company, not so much. The network owned by Rupert Murdoch has tread lightly when it comes to the phone hacking debacle at Murdoch's British papers. According to the liberal group Media Matters, from July 4th through July 13th, CNN ran 109 segments on the Murdoch mess. MSNBC ran 71. Fox News just 30. CNN has even reported on Fox's lack of reporting.
The British media scandal involving Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation has apparently put Fox News in a bit of a bind. The network has apparently gone out of its way to avoid a lot of reporting on its parent company's troubles.
Not a word about this international story last week on Fox's media show, Fox News Watch, which the panelists joked about off the air.
Anybody want to bring up the subject we're not talking about today for the streamers?
Sure, go ahead, Cal.
No, go ahead.
Yes.
I'm not going to touch it.
With a 10-foot turban.
Yeah.
The program did tackle the Murdoch scandal yesterday. Joining us now to talk about how news organizations cover bad news about themselves, James Fallows, national correspondent for The Atlantic, and Erik Wemple, who blogs about the media for The Washington Post. Jim, is it realistic to expect Fox News to devote plenty of coverage to this scandal?
No, but it's realistic to expect them to devote some coverage. And there was an astonishing clip just on Friday, I think, which Erik put on his blog, and I was also having on the Atlantic site, where Fox and Friends had an expert talking about how terrible it was to have all this hacking. Citibank was hacked, the Pentagon was hacked, the News of the World was hacked. You know, acting as if this was, why are we paying more attention to the News of the World as the victim of the hacking as opposed to the one that had been doing it?
The perpetrator would be the correct term. Erik Wemple, how much responsibility does a news organization have to cover itself when there is trouble?
Well, I think there's a difference between responsibility and expecting them to sort of be on the forefront of things. One of the things I pointed out is if the News Corp doesn't cover this at all, it'll hurt them in the ratings. I think that's a powerful check, If there's any company that cares about ratings, it's News Corp.
And this happens to be a great and juicy story.
Yes, it does. And so if they totally ignore it, well, then they'll push people elsewhere. And my only point is that you can cajole, you can shame, you can run numbers and stuff, but you can never expect the final word from an appendage of the parent company. You have to have watchdogs deliver the final word.
Not the final word. Look, I think Murdoch's Wall Street Journal has done a good job, not a great job, but is there a suspicion if you do cover it a lot that you're putting out some kind of sanitized version or pulling your punches?
Well, certainly the clip I was mentioning on Fox News did feed that suspicion. I think it's important to distinguish the two main U.S. Murdoch properties, the Wall Street Journal on one hand and Fox News on the other. They each are facing a kind of challenge, I think. Wall Street Journal is one of the great journalistic institutions in American history, but even they have been light on the subject. Joe Nocera had a very tough column yesterday in the New York Times pointing out this. In Friday's front section of the Wall Street Journal, there was no news about this whatsoever. It was on the front page of other publications. Fox, I think, it's a different question, which is whether they're going to present themselves as a real news organization at all if they so badly mishandle this story.
Well, I feel very strongly about this. I mean, we do it on this program all the time. When CNN has controversy, I always cover it. And otherwise, what you're signaling to viewers is there's a double standard. We're only aggressive when some other organization is in trouble, and I think that can undermine your credibility. But you said it's unnatural and stupid to expect organizations to do this.
I think it's unnatural and stupid to say, oh, geez, if you listen carefully to what Wolf Blitzer said, it seems as though Fox News is going out of its way not to give a lot of coverage to its own parent company. It's like, well, duh. That's what I would expect.
That doesn't deserve a breaking news logo?
That does not deserve a breaking news logo. And so, yeah, that's my only point, is that's why we have what the British call media plurality. That's why we have other organizations that can, that can burrow in and figure out. I personally, that's fine if you, Howard, believe you cover CNN, the troubles of CNN. However, if you're walking down the hall and you figure something out, I wouldn't expect you to be the first to come out and break it and to tell the whole world about it.
Go ahead, Jim.
And just to make a slightly contrary point, one reason that the New York Times has special standing is after the Jason Blair scandal, after the Iraq WMD scandal, they themselves launched big projects to say, how did this happen? What should we do about it? CBS with the Dan Rather situation, they had their own investigator come in. If the Fox properties do something like that, that will be more impressive than if they don't. It's what we expect of news organizations.
Right. I mean, New York Times didn't break the Jason Blair story.
Right, but they then went back into it.
I mentioned that because I did, but certainly they put all kinds of reporters on a major project. Now, Fox News Watch, after that embarrassment of not covering it at all, did, as I mentioned, talk about this yesterday. Here's some comments from columnist Cal Thomas.
This is the biggest case of piling on since the last rugby game I saw. The left has been out to get News Corp, especially Fox News Channel, and the Murdoch family for years.
Now, isn't there something to that? The liberal critics of Rupert Murdoch are having a field day with this. CNN has covered it a lot. Maybe CNN is covering it too much because Fox is a competitor.
There's no surfeit. There's no excess of coverage. The coverage, I think, is just about right. The reason why there might be that appearance is because you have two really far-flung time zones. You have Rebecca Brooks, who resigns at our time, 5:25 basically in the morning. Les Hinton resigns our time like 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
The head of Dow Jones.
Yes, right. So you have two resignations at the end of the day. You know, what other perception can you have other than that the media is playing up? No, News Corp is playing this up because everybody is going down.
And to emphasize why this matters, this is as big a crisis as happened in Britain in a generation plus.
Because it goes well beyond the media.
Yes, it's the police, it's the political establishment, it's the media establishment, and the most important, the most powerful single media person in the U.S. too, which is Rupert Murdoch. So not to cover this would be journalistic malfeasance.
But you wouldn't concede that, I mean, you have, for example, the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee putting out a petition, stand with Democrats, demand that Murdoch come clean on spying. You wouldn't concede that liberals who don't like Rupert Murdoch are just milking this for all it's worth.
If this had no connection whatsoever to the nature of the operations, especially through Fox News, then you might say they're reaching. But since the basic accusation, as Michael Wolff was saying, that Murdoch is using his media power for political ends is similar in the UK and the US, I think it's natural that Democrats would say this.
Now, on your media blog at the Washington Post, you took on a Washington Post story which was about the difference between British and American journalism. I'm happy to point that out. And you said, basically, we should just come out and say, British journo standards are sleazy and destructive. And you think that we're kind of dancing around that because Americans don't want to look superior?
I thought in this particular iteration, I couldn't keep quiet. I'm not, again, I don't take relish in outing my own employer, but I thought in this particular instance, he said, none of this is to say that, American journalistic standards are superior to British. Nonsense. They are. Okay? They're vastly superior. And one of the points I tried to make is one of the great embarrassments on our media landscape, as you pointed out in the story this week, is the New York Post, which, pay for coverage. Hey, pay me, I'll keep you out of the paper. Pay me, I'll put you in the paper. It goes both ways. Murdoch now feels good about the Clintons. Let's write good things about the Clintons, And so that's the point I was trying to make, was that, yes, I do feel that American standards are superior.
Which is not to say the American media are perfect.
Yes, we're all agreeing that. But I think the range from high to low in the British press is broader than in the U.S. It's no accident that most great American tabloid editors are Brits, or at least Fleet Street veterans. Australians have gone through there, too.
That's why they're brought over here, and that's why this story is not going to go away. If you're just tuning in, Rebecca Brooks, the former Murdoch lieutenant who resigned Friday, arrested today in London. The story is not going away. Eric Wempel, James Fallows, thanks very much for joining us.